If intrinsic value grows like this, why do asset prices grow like this? Who knows? In the real world, things fluctuate between pretty good and not so hot, but in the minds of investors, they go from flawless to hopeless. And so the prices fluctuate enormously around the intrinsic value.
So, you have a book called Mastering the Market Cycle, and a lot of that's kind of pattern recognition. Where are we today?
Yeah. Where are we today in the market cycle?
Yeah.
Well, I believe, you see, we have this thing called intrinsic value. Every company has an intrinsic value. Every asset class has an intrinsic value. And it kind of goes like this. It meanders along and it tends to grow over time. Most companies become more profitable and more valuable over time. So intrinsic value grows like this. And it's not a straight line. It goes a little up and down, and depending on the economy and the decisions that management makes, but it's essentially up and to the right. But then if you look at the prices of assets, they go like this. They careen like mad. What's the difference? If intrinsic value grows like this, why do asset prices grow like this? Who knows? Psychology. What I say is that in the real world, things fluctuate between pretty good and not so hot. But in the minds of investors, they go from flawless to hopeless. And so the prices fluctuate enormously around the intrinsic value. So what matters, if you want to make good investments, and you want to know if this is a good time to make investments, you say, well, where is price relative to intrinsic value? When price is above intrinsic value, you're overpaying. When it's below intrinsic value, you're getting a discount. When it's fair, you'll basically benefit from the progress of the intrinsic value. What determines the relationship between price and intrinsic value is emotion or psychology, or we call it investor sentiment. And when people are optimistic, you get prices above intrinsic value. And when people are pessimistic, you get prices below intrinsic value. And that's why Buffett says you should be cautious when people are carefree and aggressive when people are terrified. It's called contrarianism. We try to practice it. So your question was, where are we today? Well, what psychology holds sway today? And the answer is that in 22 was the worst year in recent memory. And it was the worst year in our business. We talk about 60-40, this hypothetical portfolio, which is 60% stocks and 40% bonds. Nobody holds it anymore, but it's just a figure of speech. But it was the worst year in history, in all-time history, for the 60-40 portfolio, because stocks have done worse in the past, but usually when stocks go down, bonds go up. And this time, stocks and bonds both went down at the same time, and it was a rough year. And at the beginning of 22, people said, well, we have inflation. That's a bad thing. But then the Fed will probably raise rates to kill the inflation, and that'll cause a recession. And that's a bad thing. So in other words, it's all bad. And that's why 22 was such a bad year, because people were depressed. But then around the end of 22, they started to say, hey, wait a minute. The inflation looks like it's subsiding, and the higher rates haven't produced a recession, and the Fed given that the inflation is subsiding, the Fed will probably start to cut rates, which will stimulate the economy. Oh yeah, now it's all good. So again, remember, flawless to hopeless, and now so the sentiment fluctuated from hopeless to flawless. And the stock market started to go up roughly, I think, November of 22. And here we are 39 months later, and this has been one of the greatest markets in history. And the S&P 500 stock index has been around for about a century. There have been 97 or 98 three-year periods, by definition. And there have been only 6 which were better than the last 3 years. So we've had a big swing from pessimism to optimism. We've had a rapid rise in prices, but now I don't think it can be argued that prices are below intrinsic value. I think they're above, which means that the market is somewhat precarious, and you should take an intelligently prudent approach to it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
It's not terrible. It's not time to hide under the mattress, but you should be careful.
So, if I borrow money to acquire a company that already has a significant amount of debt and then sell it later, that benefits tremendously from what you just described. And we've seen superior returns, at least higher returns, over the past multiple decades, right? Entire industries have been built on this. Entire frameworks for investing, even endowments, have revolved around this. Going forward, would it be rational to expect that to continue?
Well, it would not be rational. Thank you. So you can go out and buy something, and if it goes up, you'll make some money. Or you can go out and borrow some money and buy 5 of them. And if they go up, you'll make 5 times as much money if it goes up. Well, declining interest rate, make it go up, and the cost of paying the money. Well, the better example. So you're sitting there and you find a company. If you buy that company, you think you can make 10% a year if you own it. And you talk to your investment banker and they say, well, we can get money for you at 8%. You say, oh, I can borrow at 8 and invest at 10. Let's go. So you go out and do it. But then interest rates go down. And rather than make 10, you make 12. And rather than pay 8, you pay 6. And you say, I'm Bernard Baruch, and so never confuse brains and a bull market. And when you're lucky, when you happen upon a salutary environment, never think it was all you. And most people credit themselves with all their successes and blame others for their failures.